Today's video is another super exciting one, mostly because I have a brand new toy to play with. So today we're going to be talking about the Sony A6600 and why I think it's one of the best cameras for content creators. For the last few years, I have been using Sony cameras, more specifically the Sony A6300. I've used it from everything from content creation, live streaming, and also in my paid professional work, filming weddings. Honestly, this camera is amazing for the price of it. I think when I got mine, it was around about 700, 800 pounds, but now you can pick them up for around 400, 450. And honestly, the features you get inside of this thing are pretty sweet. You've got 4K up to 30 frames per second. You've got 1080 up to 120 frames per second. You've got great picture profiles. You've even got S-Log 2 and 3 in there. And also, the form factor of this is amazing for many different varieties of shooting. Don't get me wrong, I love this camera and it's treated me really well over the years that I've been using it. However, no camera is perfect and I have a couple of issues with this one specifically. The three main issues I have with the Sony A6300 are, one, the battery life, because it uses these old FW50 batteries, Sony ones, which are generally tiny, and I'm lucky if I get 45 minutes to an hour, maybe shooting in 4K. Issue number two I have with this camera is I'm a content creator and I shoot myself a lot for videos like this or streaming, and I need to see what I'm doing. However, this old camera, the 6300, the monitor only goes up this far. It has a tilty monitor, which is absolutely useless as a content creator. And issue number three is probably my biggest pet peeve when it comes to the Sony A6300. The other two I can kind of cope with. They've got workarounds and they're not terrible. However, this last one is kind of deal-breaking sometimes. It does suffer a lot from overheating. It's not something that's completely native to the A6300. It's like a Sony issue. A lot of their mirrorless cameras suffer with overheating when recording for a long period of time. However, I'm someone who needs to record for a while and over a long period of time, over a day, because, well, as I said earlier, I film weddings, so I need it to be reliable and I need to record long things like ceremonies and speeches. And that's where the A6600 comes in. I'm hoping that because of all the updates they've done to this camera, it now fixes the three biggest issues I have with the A6300. So as you can see, the A6300 and 6600 look very similar at first glance design-wise. However, the 6600 has a few key differences to warrant the upgrade over the 6300. The first of which being the batteries. The Sony A6300 uses the old-style FW50 batteries, which lasts roughly 45 minutes to an hour on a full charge, whereas the new Sony A6600 uses this battery instead, which is the FZ100, and it's supposed to last double the amount of time. Obviously, having a bigger battery, you need a bigger battery grip, but that also means that you now have a lot easier handle to hold on to when you're actually shooting, which makes the world of difference when you're doing handheld footage or holding the camera for long periods of time. Another nice upgrade for the Sony A6600 is the new articulating screen. The old screen on the A6300 only tilts up this far, which is a little bit useless as a content creator, but the new one on the 6600 basically flips the whole way up, so you're able to film yourself and see what you're shooting. To add to the flip screen, the Sony A6600 now has a brand new touchscreen as well, which honestly is amazing. I know it's not brand new to the entire range of Sony cameras. However, it's new to me because the Sony A6300 did not have a touchscreen prior to this. The reason a touchscreen is useful for a camera like this is when it comes to autofocus. This camera has amazing autofocus. However, when you're trying to choose autofocus points, usually you have to use dials and the buttons and stuff on the back, but if you've got a touchscreen, you can just press I want to focus here and the camera will focus exactly where you've pressed. Anyway, briefly going back to the batteries that I mentioned earlier on, these new batteries, as I said, were meant to last about double the amount of time as the old ones, and you're definitely going to need it with this new camera because Sony finally decided to get rid of the recording limit which we previously had. If you used a camera like this in the last few years, even the last decade, any DSLR or mirrorless camera pretty much had a 29-minute, 59-second record limit attached to it. However, Sony's latest line of cameras, the 6100, 6400 and 6600, have all got away. They've got rid of that record limit and finally made it unlimited, so you're going to need that extra battery life to be able to record long form things. Anyway, as I said earlier on, the whole point of this video today is to explain why I think this camera is perfect for content creators. So let me explain that point a little bit better. As you can see right here, this camera is perfect for making travel films and vlogs, anything that's outside where you have to travel around and carry it with you. Mostly because it's a small camera, it doesn't weigh much, and also, not to mention, it has external microphones so you can get good audio like this, as well as that awesome autofocus, which I've mentioned earlier in the video, which means you'll always be in focus and have the best quality image possible out of the camera. Not only is this camera great for vlogging like I just mentioned, it's also good for long form content as well, because the record limit has now been removed. So if you film events, you can now do that. You've also got long form interviews, maybe even a visual podcast, or if you just want to sit down and do educational stuff, YouTube videos, just piece to camera kind of stuff like this, you don't have to worry about the camera cutting out halfway through your recording. Also, another added thing, because of that type of content, if you're doing interviews or if you just want to check how you sound when you're recording yourself, this camera now has an inbuilt headphone jack, so now you can record and also monitor the sound that you're listening to make sure that you aren't peaking and that you're loud enough and sound good. Another thing this camera is perfect for is professional work, mostly because of the features I've already mentioned, but Sony added in a bunch of the higher end professional picture profiles in this camera, so you can get great looking images from S-Log2, S-Log3, and even the more modern hybrid log gamma. So as you can see, if I take it off, it's very flat looking, but it leaves you a lot of room in post to edit back in that grade and choose exactly how you want it to look. I would like to add in though that this camera only records 8-bit color internally. However, it does have HDMI out, which means that you can get 10-bit color, which means you'll be able to grade it a lot more vigorously and change things a lot more without the footage itself breaking down. Speaking of that HDMI signal though, it's obviously a clean HDMI out, which if you don't know means that it doesn't send any of the information that's displayed on your camera out through the HDMI, so you get a nice clean image to be able to send to other places like monitors. But also it means that it's great for live streaming, because basically you can capture the information from your camera, plug it into a capture card, into your PC, and then live stream to Twitch, Mixer, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you want to do it. And then obviously people can see your great camera quality online. Speaking of that great camera quality though, this setup is what I use for my live streams. So if you're interested in seeing what this looks like in an actual live situation, I'll leave a link to my Twitch channel down below in the doobly-doo, and hopefully we can hang out soon. Right, so far we've basically learned that the A6600 is the same as the A6300, but with a flip screen and a few added extras. However, the whole point of this video was for me to try and get a camera that alleviated the issues I had with the 6300. So the flip screen does fix the screen issue I was having, but I need to alleviate the battery issue and also the overheating issue. So I really need to do a test to see if it's any better than it was before. Right, so basically I've come up with this test. Well, I'm going to come up with it and set it out in a minute. So I've currently got these cameras here. I've got the 6300 and the 6600. Both are going to have official Sony batteries attached to them. The screens are going to be flipped out to alleviate any ridiculous overheating. And then I'm going to play them both in 4K in picture profile Cine 4. That way I've got them both set up exactly the same with the same settings, and the only variables now are really the camera body itself and the battery. So hopefully this test will be pretty fair and we'll be able to see if anything overheats and how long the batteries last and any other issues like that. So let's get started. So as you've seen there, unsurprisingly, the A6300 overheated after 23-24 minutes or so. I'm not surprised at all, mostly because it's been doing it for years and it's a very well-known issue for that camera. However, I am happy to report that the 6600 is still going strong. It's not overheated. There's no signs of that at all. And the battery life is still really good so far. After continuing the test for what felt like forever, the A6600 basically, it ran out of SD card space before the battery died and before it overheated. I was using a 128GB card recording in 4K and we got 2 hours 40 worth of footage before it stopped recording. However, we still had 20% of battery left, around there anyway, and also we didn't once get any overheating warning signs or nothing turned off. So I'm very surprised, but also pleasantly surprised about how well it performed compared to the old camera I was using. Obviously, this wasn't the most scientific of tests. I just did it in my house, which was in England, not the warmest place in the world. I know it was probably around 20 degrees or so, but I did get around 2.5 hours, 2 hours 40 out of this, which for the majority of people is more than enough. In most of my situations, and I do it professionally, I don't often need to record for that long. If I do ceremonies and speeches and stuff at weddings, it's usually about an hour or so. So 2.5, 3 hours worth of record time is more than enough. For me at least anyway. However, I will say this though, I haven't had this camera that long, so I haven't done extensive testing on this stuff, and I haven't used it in different weathers and temperatures, so your mileage may kind of vary depending on where you live and what you're recording and where you are. So in summer you might get less time, you might even get it to overheat at some point, but it's something that I need to test when the time comes to it. But I'm assuming, well, I'm more hoping that it doesn't overheat. Sony has a notorious reputation for making cameras that do overheat, so I'm hoping these latest iterations, these updates that they're like pushing out now, kind of have solved that issue for good. From the looks of it though, Sony seem to be pushing things in the right direction, and I hope it continues to go that way. At the moment though, with this camera and the way it's set up and the tests I've done, it seems like it's the perfect camera for me, for my setups. The only thing that's left to ask now is this camera right for you though? Obviously it's going to work for me. I'm going to be using it as a B cam to my A7 III on my professional work, as well as using it as a B cam to my A7 III on my streams and content like on this channel. However, is it right for you though? If you're like me and you take your film work a little bit more seriously and you do content creation on YouTube, creating actual videos and stuff, I would say probably it's kind of an expensive investment, but it's a real good investment from all the features you get from it. However, if you're just a streamer, probably not the best decision for you to pick up this camera. If you're just looking for a good quality camera that doesn't cost the world, then I would advise getting something like the 6100 instead. However, even that is kind of a little bit expensive and has some features in it that you don't really need. So potentially, if you're on a major budget and just getting started, I would suggest getting something like the old 5100, so it still has the flip screen and stuff and clean HDMI, so you can plug it into your PC and stream and make the odd YouTube video. But yeah, both of those cameras would do perfectly fine for what you need it for. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. I am still playing around with this camera, so I'm going to be learning a lot more about it over the next few months. So if you have any more questions, leave it in the comments down below. I'll try and get around to make a video and testing things out with it. If you did enjoy this video, remember to give me a like and comment down below. Also subscribe, because I'll be uploading more videos in the future. And if you want to check it out and see what it looks like in a live stream situation, I'll be streaming on Twitch, and I'll leave the link in the doobly-doo down below. I'll see you all in the next one though. Have a good one. Night Owl out. Peace.
So, without further ado, here is the new camera in 3, 2, 1. A click. Look at that! How cool is that? It's so different. Like, it's ridiculous. It looks almost the same. It's the same angle. It's very similar.